Welcome back to Dealey Plaza. You know, it took 8 minutes for President Kennedy to arrive at Parkland Hospital after he was shot. Doctors and nurses poured into Trauma Room 1, desperate to save the president's life. NBC5's Jeff Smith sat down with one of the very first surgeons to see the president. An extraordinary interview, Jeff.
Well, Dr. Robert McClennan has shared his story with everyone from conspiracy researchers to elementary school children. And he was one of the only people to witness the tragic, heartbreaking final kiss between Jackie Kennedy and her husband.
Where were you when Kennedy got shot?
Dr. Robert McClennan is used to the cameras and the microphones.
They've just called from the emergency room and said they're bringing the president in, that he's been shot.
The hot lights.
Put this on your belt.
And the TV interviews.
I could see that the whole back half of his right cerebral hemisphere was gone.
As he tells the story he's told thousands of times.
It was, I'll hold it up like that. And as I said, the whole back half of his right side of his brain was gone. Even though that was a very unique case, to say the least.
But at home, in more quiet moments, the magnitude of what he witnessed still sinks in.
Clear as I'm standing here watching you. You know, things like that are burned into your memory.
That's McClellan's 50-year-old dress shirt, the one he wore when trying to save the president.
And that's his blood, and I was soaked in it.
McClennan will never forget the crush of people in the operating room area, doctors and nurses, FBI agents, and Secret Service men.
It was jammed with men in business suits, shoulder to shoulder. You couldn't have packed hardly one more body into that area.
McClennan stood at the head of the gurney, holding a metal retractor to Kennedy's throat wound, and he was looking straight down at a gaping hole in the president's head.
I was horrified to see him like that, with his head covered in blood, that light shining on it.
Even today's medical advances couldn't have saved the president. Within 10 minutes, a priest came to deliver the last rites. Most of the doctors cleared the room, but McClennan, trapped behind a gurney pressed against the wall, couldn't get out.
Before he said anything, he had made the sign of the cross on the president's forehead, anointed his forehead, and then leaned over and said, "If thou livest," and then completed whatever the ceremony was.
Then Jackie Kennedy walked into Trauma Room 1, and the First Lady, covered in blood, spent a few final moments with her husband.
She stood there for a moment and exchanged a ring from her finger onto the president's finger and a ring from his finger onto hers. And she stood there another moment or two and walked down slowly to the end of the gurney where the president's right bare foot was protruding out from underneath the sheet that had been used to cover him. And she stood by his foot for a moment, leaned over and kissed his foot, and then walked out of the room. It was a very significant, emotional, heartbreaking moment, I would say.
And so he keeps the shirt close to him as a reminder of what America lost that day. Usually it's tucked away in his briefcase.
I can still visualize that in my mind to this day, as well as the day I saw it.
Someday he'll donate it to the 6th Floor Museum, a final bit of closure for a career marked by his desperate efforts to save a president's life. And a fascinating footnote to this is that just 2 days later, Dr. Robert McClennan operated on Lee Harvey Oswald when he was rushed into the trauma rooms at Parkland Hospital after being shot. Dr. McClennan helped open up Oswald's chest cavity, even massaged his heart in an effort to save his life. So Dr. McClennan has an unbelievable connection to both the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and also his accused assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald. Brian?
The sight of that shirt is just so powerful, Jeff. I want to talk about security here.